All right. So, with that being said, moving into the main part of this episode, and yeah, we're talking about the Trump raid. And
shocking.
Not necessarily the things that you're supposed to think about the Trump raid, either pro or against. But, you know, these themes are running underneath it all the more. And I would posit that they are reaching the level of meme quality that needs to be destroyed. So, if you haven't heard, again, crawl out from under your political rock just a little bit. The Trump private residence in Mar-a-Lago, Florida was raided earlier this week with a search warrant signed by a judge. So again, due process has been served, at least in that regard. Showed up to his house and rifled through his stuff and opened a safe and yada, yada, yada. And allegedly, Trump had taken, after he left office, highly classified information that wasn't supposed to be taken. And that's what he's allegedly apparently did. Several items that he took that were matters of national security or had highly classified information. That's what it was for. Now, although that just happened this week, I want to remind you of a June 7th, and I think we talked about at the time, June 7th of this year, a DHS National Terrorism Bulletin was issued. And what that bulletin said was, watch out because of the contentious times going on in America right now, essentially. Watch out for violence to break out between ideological opponents, or watch out for violent extremism from ideological opponents. Now, the classic example of this is Antifa versus MAGA, but it need not be just those groups. They're basically saying anybody who has a strong ideological view in one way or another might be committing violence in the near future. Watch out, right? This is a terrorism bulletin issued by the Department of Homeland Security. And then come around August, not 2 months later, or right at 2 months later, they set in motion the increased likelihood that there might be violence from their ideological opponents, right? Trump supporters, by setting that whole thing in motion by issuing this FBI raid to give them, or to give some radicals in that group, right, a reason to go after government targets. If you were trying to provoke that type of action and you predicted that and then acted and made the first move 2 months later, you don't think that's suspicious?
Nope.
You don't think that's suspicious?
Nope. You called it. You're like a soothsayer.
You're like Nancy Pelosi in the stock market.
You see it before it happens. Like, yeah, of course it's going to go this way. Well, why is it going to go that way? Don't worry about it. I might have a vote or two that might push in that way, but it's going to go that way. And sure shit, does it not go that way? Does it not correlate back to Russia and his connections with Russia, even though Hillary Clinton was more closely connected with Russia than he was? Does it not mean that he's being investigated, being indicted by the same party that's had power for 2 years, but can't help but blame him still for all the things that are going wrong in this country? They can't fix it in 2 years, but they're the smarter party. They're saying all the reasons that this whole country is fakakta is still because of this fuckhead that owned the country for 4 years before them. Yet, since they've taken power...
And by the way, substantively changed very little about the way the federal apparatus works. So from a DC insider's perspective, not that radical.
Right. And so when the stock market crashed, when fuel prices went up, and when the cost of living is going up, and everything seems to be imploding around them, when they're holding Trump personally responsible for every person that got a stubbed toe in the fucking United States during his presidential presidency.
Yeah, keep going.
I'm going to go with that. Take that if you want. Now, they can't even be held accountable for gas prices, for their own policies, for them printing money that has led to 8.5 inflation that apparently doesn't exist. Neither does a recession anymore. If we don't call it a recession, if we don't call it inflation, it doesn't exist. So here we are.
Yeah. Because inflation didn't go up or down month over month, 8.5 to 8.5, instead of year over, which is what it's calculated on. What was it at this prices last year? You're still sitting there with 8.5% inflation.
Didn't go down, you dipshit.
Let alone 8.5 points in a month.
We figured it out. It didn't go up, it didn't go down.
So, by the way, think about that. You get an F by running it all the way up to 8.5% in the case. Like, just put it in terms of grades as a kid. So you failed so bad that it's all the way up at 8.5%.
Hey,
and
you're trying
to say I'm back down at an A because I didn't get any worse from where I took it to.
I handed in 12% of the assignments that you allowed me.
Even take it on your own terms. There's nothing to brag about, bro. You see how that's worse, right?
No, they don't. They don't want to. They're gonna. Well, inflation doesn't exist anymore. Well. So that's our studio's fucking income.
Okay, too much of a detour. So, based on the FBI just so happening to predict that and then setting in motion the events for it to occur, it's kind of odd that they decided to do the raid shortly after, like a couple of days, I think, of Trump saying, yeah, pretty much I'm running again in 2024. And what does it mean if he's convicted on these charges that they searched his home for? It means that he can't run in 2024. He's legally barred from it. So now, listen, I'm not saying that you should take it this way, but I'm saying if you step in the other side's shoes for 5 seconds, you can see how certain actions may not be worth it. Democracy's sacred to you, right? Progressives, leftists, regime people in power that are all aligned against this one man or the 75 million people that voted for him. You're always talking about the sacredness of democracy. Now, if the shoe happened to be on the other foot and you were their position and they put in motion a situation to take away a person off the ballot that you would want to vote for, and they're not doing it on anything other than trumped up charges, no pun intended, you'd be kind of mad about your loss of a chance at democracy, right? That thing that's sacred to you. So if the other side happens to see it like that, whether you think it's justified or not, you can see how the principles that you've been spouting leads to this likely conclusion when you try to take this away from this group of people. So if you're predicting terrorist acts from ideological opponents and you set in motion to piss people off so fundamentally that they no longer believe in fundamental democracy, you're increasing the likelihood that what kind of events are going to occur, or at least what kind of pretext do you now have to accuse somebody of that being their motives?
Okay, Dane, if you're dating a woman, they constantly told you that you don't have to worry about the things that she's doing on the side. If she was texting somebody and be like, oh, he's just a friend from work, you don't have to worry about him. Oh, I'm just going to go out for drinks with my friend from work. Don't worry about him. It's like, oh, I'm just going to sleep over at my friend's house. Don't worry about him. What would you think, Dane?
I think of that meme, like the guy she tells you not to worry about.
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then it's you. It's like the little spindly motherfucker. It's like, if one party keeps saying that they're trying to protect democracy, but everything that they do just so happens to coincide with the...
Not.
Right. Like, we are all for democracy. Investigate him because he looks like he's going to challenge us in the next upcoming presidential candidate. Like, can we find some, like, him groping somebody's pussy? Or can we find him, like, on a tape getting this? Or can we find him saying that he's definitely fucked everybody? And they found all of it. And then guess what he did? He still beat them. He still beat them at their own game. And now they know that they have to play even dirtier, which is...
If they can take the chess piece off the board,
a federal fucking raid. Coincidence doesn't exist, only the illusion of coincidence. And it definitely doesn't exist when you involve the government. Like, whenever the government is coincidentally involved, I can guarantee you it wasn't a coincidence. It was planned, it was calculated, and they did it on purpose. Now, are we Trumpians? No. Not by any standard of the word. not by any context of the conception. However, we are still vehemently in defense of the Constitution, and to play with democracy like this,
He is.
even though, well, he, whatever, like to play with democracy like this and then say that you're defending it, what does that sound like? That doesn't sound like democracy. That sounds like tyranny, doesn't it? A little bit of it.
A little bit.
A little bit. You're going to just execute or denigrate your opponents so they don't ever have a voice?
So listen, and here's the thing. We're not taking the Republican or Trump supporter thing of like, how dare you do this to an ex-president? Because not only is that just bad optics, it looks like you're
Why
saying...
stop there, Dave?
It looks like you're saying that somebody is above the law. So that's probably not the strongest argument to make. But I get why you're saying it. You're saying it because, well, they're weaponizing the FBI to make political moves to stop somebody from being on the ballot. If that's fundamentally what it's about, that is a political corruption thing, as opposed to just a power thing of the inside elites want him out, and he's not going down without a fight. So whether that's what you think about it or not, we just thought, David, I think we did, we thought, there's this claim going around about this raid that, what did we just say? No person is above the law. Doesn't matter their station in life, doesn't matter the money they have, doesn't matter their gender or their sexual orientation or whatever. We are a nation of laws, not of men, and nobody is above the law. Okay?
So, Dane, where do you want to start? Please.
I know where you want to start.
Which head would you want to roll first? Would it be the person that was just on right before they raided saying, no man is above the law. Everyone is accountable to the law.
Who is this?
This would be Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, and what is she not being FBI investigated for?
I don't know. Well,
or at least SEC, federal investigation of some sort.
That she's out predicting the market. That her husband seems to be ahead of the game even before she votes on a fucking subject that she's made $200 million of profit in within the last 2 months. I'm sorry. You're right. No one is above the law, Nancy. So why don't you hold your feet to the fire yourself?
Listen, FBI. Listen, SEC.
Sorry.
Okay? We're not saying that we know how to do your jobs better than you. However, when there are multiple public Twitter and meme page accounts talking about Nancy Pelosi's trades and pointing out...
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm choking on irony.
David, that's too heavy-handed.
I swallowed the irony. Good. It's down on my gut.
Listen, we're just saying that there are some dots to connect if you chose to look in that particular direction. That's all we're saying. Maybe not. Maybe she's not doing anything wrong.
The normal fucking person can figure it out.
Maybe she and old DUI Paulie, they know exactly how to predict the market.
He can predict the market, but not where the DUI checkpoints are. Nope, not that weekend. They're unpredictable.
Okay. Who else? Let's see. I don't know. I'm just gonna run through the list for sakeness of time. Let's see. The homes of anyone that was in Epstein's logbook, other than Epstein himself, which they did get into his save, and they had a whole bunch of contents, which mysteriously, after the FBI got it, those contents went missing. That's a strange thing.
It's hard.
Something tells me the stuff they got out of Trump's safe aren't going to magically go missing. How about Hunter and Joe Biden? Hunter at bare minimum. They've had control of a laptop for like 2 years.
Says the big guy in it.
With him literally filming himself doing crack with potentially underage
his dick
hookers.
out and a pistol. And hookers.
Or at least underage girls. I don't know if there were hookers.
Some
maybe, some didn't.
Oh, they were underage? I didn't know that part.
That's
fun.
That's suspected that some might be.
That's fun. Imagine if Trump Jr. did that.
What about Hillary's emails? Now, I know the leftist progressives are laughing. Oh, he's bringing up Hillary's emails. Well, listen, I don't know whether she was guilty or not. All I know is that a phone that had a lot of information on it wound up smashed by a hammer. If Trump had some things in his house smashed up by a hammer, you might have questions.
All I'm going to say is...
keep an open mind. Maybe guilty, maybe not.
Trump's known for fucking a porn star. The Clintons are known for a body count. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
What about, this is just because he's one of my favorite limp-wristed soy boys on Twitter from Congress, Representative Eric Swalwell, who literally slept with, this is not hyperbole, a Chinese spy, was sleeping with her. Good old man Eric Swalwell. Did he potentially give up some national security details to this woman? I don't know. I have no idea.
You scream out some crazy shit when you're in the moment. Yeah,
I have no idea, but I will bet you almost anything. Any international, definitely Australia listeners, if you know this, I'll be very surprised, and you are really plugged in.
Come on, my Aussies.
Yeah, Eric Swalwell, you'll never believe, no FBI investigation.
Oh, that's weird.
He's basically, I didn't say nothing to her, and they're like, oh, okay, good, just
Thank
don't let
God.
it happen again.
You just deposited some biological material inside her, and you didn't say nothing.
What about Obama and Eric Holder for Operation Fast and Furious? You remember that massive FBI investigation?
I love Fast and Furious 1 through 5. It got a little cheesy after 6 and 9.
Yeah.
When they introduced The Rock, I was like, oh, that's so dumb.
They're trying too hard.
I didn't know The Rock was a government agent, by the way. And Vin Diesel.
Gross. I want to watch those movies even less than I already have not.
That.
Probably just lost half our audience. How about James Clapper lying under oath, which was discovered later, to the U.S. Senate about NSA spying? Basically said, no, we're not collecting metadata on the American citizens. We are not doing that.
And then somebody else came out and said that he definitely was.
Yeah, and then, now that guy's in political asylum over in Russia, of all places.
So when the truth comes out, they're not a fan of that, but the people that lie get to stay here and keep running the country. Interesting.
And by virtue of him being in Russia, both before and since, obviously, the invasion of Ukraine, he's like the worst person ever. If anybody tries to pardon that young man for telling the American people that their government was not only spying on them, but lied to their faces, to their elected representatives in the Senate and said, we're not spying on you, but they were.
The fucked thing is that
no FBI investigation.
They do it with reckless abandon nowadays. They just lie to your face, be like, again, to track back to it, there's no inflation. It didn't inflate anymore in July, so there's no more inflation. There's no recession. You're just having a hard time paying for all the things that you were easily paying for before. There's nothing like that. Go on about your lives, citizens. Don't question us ever.
David, does the name John Brennan mean anything to you?
No. Who is he?
He was the former, was he CIA director? FBI director?
I think it was FBI.
One of those agency directors.
I think CIA was
But
Comey.
I think shortly after the Biden inauguration last year, we did an episode on it. He was the one who came on MSNBC or something and started rattling off a list of extremist groups they were going to send people out to get. And on that list was he said, even some libertarians. He didn't say anarcho-capitalists. He didn't say Betsy Ross Flag flyers. He didn't say...
It's a good thing I sexually identify as a goddamn Democrat.
Mullen lobbers, none of that. He did not single out them. He did libertarians, though. Cast a wide net. How many of those groups do you think consider themselves to be, broadly speaking, libertarian in some sense of the word?
Centrist. So I feel like he was just saying centrist. Whatever doesn't tote the party line. What does that sound like to you, Dan? Does it sound like fascism?
It definitely sounds like there are two groups of citizens in this country, and it ain't the rich and the poor. It's the powerful and the rest of us.
Tyranny? I don't know. I'd hate to say that word.
I'm told we had a democracy and that we, the people, rule this country. That's what I'm told.
And that is my
level of civics education in this country.
And that we can also own guns.
Yeah.
And that we can also do the things in this life that we want to live by ourselves. Just saying.
Yeah. Now, John Brennan, you'll never. Anyway, he said that about libertarians later. Before that, he spied on some Senate staffers, lied about it, and then broke into Senate computers to read emails from whistleblowers. Mr. Brennan.
Womp, womp.
Shame on you. Did you get an FBI investigation?
Naughty, little Brennan.
So we bring that list up to say this. Is no man really above the law? Or as this episode is all about, notice who you're told to be mad at versus who you're not. You're told to be mad at the guy who at least represents, even if he doesn't act all the time, or maybe a little too much, he represents the idea of not going along with what the powerful elite want. That's what Trump represents to a lot of people. And again, all I'm saying is, if you try to say that no man's above the law and that's why we need to go after him, there's at least a couple of people on that list who deserve similar treatment. That's it.
The old saying still adheres true today. I don't agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. You might not agree with Trump. You might hate Trump. But you also have to agree with the fact that the NCAA also stood up for the fact that the Ku Klux Klan had their right to protest, had their right to say what they had to say, because they knew...
The ACLU.
That's what I said.
You said NCAA.
We'll take that back. Want to take it back?
No. Right, I want it in.
Cut that part out.
It sounds funny.
Alphabet soup bullshit is so goddamn complicated.
I swear.
ACW as NCAA. Yes.
No, the ACLU.
That's what I said.
The American Civil Liberties Union.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Anyway, he knew what I was saying. That's why we keep him on the team. He keeps me on the team.
It took me a second for it to catch up.
I was like, it didn't sound right, but I'm going to keep running with it. He'll check me. But anyway, the NCAA probably stood up for him too. That's all I'm saying. They've got Alabama in there. Anyway, all I'm saying is, like, it's important to stand up for free speech, even though you might not agree with it, because you never know when the door is going to swing back your way, which is what we always say.
Exactly. And, I would say to those now cheering the FBI, and they are the paragons of truth, and they are our trusted institutions who never are motivated by politics, but only what's in the best interest of the American public to keep them safe from threats and yada, yada, yada. If that's what you believe about the FBI, modern day progressives, I would ask you to just remember back a little bit of history. Right? The FBI's precursor was used by Woodrow Wilson to track down and prosecute and punish protesters of entry into World War I. The same FBI, or that which later became the agency of the FBI, was the one that blackmailed Martin Luther King over his marital infidelities to basically crush him because he was a too powerful leader, unifier of the civil rights movement. How about the killing of Fred Hampton, done at FBI hands? How about anti-Vietnam War protesters, right? Your hippie uncles and stuff. Yeah, FBI was rounding them up and going after them as, communists. Or how about more recent times? Comey is the one who cost Hillary the 2016 election in some theories by saying that, there's a problem with her emails and we're going after her for it. A lot of people blame her loss in 2016 on that. Or how about more recently?
But he wrote a book that fucking hated on Trump, so now he's okay.
He's like the best guy ever.
Great.
And even more recent times than that, we know that you cheer this version of the FBI. Not all those other versions, but you cheer this version. The Gretchen Whitmer plot. Those radical MAGA-ites who wanted to abduct Michigan? Yeah, I think Michigan governor.
How'd that turn out?
Where something like 8 out of 12 of the plotters were FBI plants meant to convince the other 4. Yeah. Now that plot, that was orchestrated by the FBI.
So if you believe in the FBI after all of that, I've got some great real estate available solely to you in the Everglades, right down the road here. You're the only ones that I can sell it to.
It's a giant bridge, and it goes
to nowhere.